I'm Megan Skidmore, and welcome to the Beyond the Shadow of Doubt. I'm a woman, daughter, sister, spouse, mother, life coach, and person of faith on a mission to normalize asking questions and allowing doubts on a faith journey and all aspects of life. Join me as I bring this traditionally taboo topic out of the shadows of shame and into the light. I firmly believe we normalize through more talking and engaging in discussion. More talking peels back, exposes, and erases the layers of shame associated with asking questions and allowing doubts. When we are more authentic about our journey, we are more powerful because shame has no power in the face of authenticity. Okay, welcome to today's episode. This is, I just don't even have words for today because I have Shannon Lamb with me. Shannon and I go way back, but we've been chatting a little bit before hitting record, and this has been a mini reunion for us because we went to grad school together in the 90s.
Way back when.
Well, partially the 90s and the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
That was a great experience. Lots of good memories there. Fast forward to the 20s and social media and all the ways to reconnect and be connected with people. And our paths started crossing again. And I could see, Shannon, that your path was, I don't know, I could relate to, I was like, something's going on. I want to connect with her again and let's just chat. Let's just talk and see how life's been and what's new, what's old, just how things are going. And so I am really grateful for you going along with this wild and crazy fun idea to come and be interviewed. So thanks.
Well, thanks for having me. And I'm so glad you reached out. I think this is kind of what it's about, right? And you know, we've been friends on social media, but I was not, for a long time on social media, I was just like, oh, do the happy, fun things. And then I got to a point where I'm like, I'm actually going to do the things that are really happening. I post about the things that are really happening in my life. And, I think that's how people see, we see a little something on Facebook, a little something here where you're like, oh, I wonder what is happening with them. And I'm glad you reached out.
Yeah. Actually, now that you say that, I remember noticing some of those posts, and they weren't the carbon copy type of posts, that you will see that people will make in general, the safe posts. Maybe that's a better way to put it. And I was like, wow, she is brave to be posting about some of the things that she's just being honest. And it's a process for any of us who choose to be more open and real and raw and vulnerable.
Yeah.
And it doesn't happen right in the beginning, right? So I probably noticed it because I was on the cusp of that era for myself.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the people that are not necessarily looking for it, but are going through something similar, you see it right away. If someone's willing to even post about it on social media. And I think a lot of people aren't willing to or scared to, so they don't. But, it's been several years ago now that I'm just like, I'm going to say how I feel on here. And it's in part because I saw other people post a little more real, a little more honest, and it helped me. I learned a lot. And so I think I just decided that that's how I was going to do it. And honestly, I was telling a friend, for me, social media is kind of like my journal, my journaling, I guess you could say, because I'm never going to keep a journal. Never, ever, ever. It's not going to happen. So, I'm not necessarily sharing my deepest, darkest feelings, but I am sharing what's happening with me. And I hope to be able to relate to others because I've just often thought, heck, if I'm going through this, there has to be others that are experiencing the same thing. So,
yeah, I feel that very much. I consider this podcast in some ways a kind of a digital journal of sorts that highly doubt my kids are listening right now. But maybe in 10 years, who knows?
Well, so the interesting thing on that, though, is if going back to social media, because I post on Instagram and Facebook, I am friends with my kids, right? I have 3 kids that are already out of the house. And so they see every post that I write. And sometimes I'm like, should I, or how should I say this? But, and they'll usually like my posts. And so it's interesting because they are seeing almost in real time, their mom experiencing these things. As an adult, but an adult that I don't have all the answers. I don't know everything. And I'm just doing the best I can,
They're getting to know a new mom in some ways, you're the same mom, but some layers are peeled back. And it's not necessarily the mom that you might have presented growing up.
Yeah.
Because of what you're learning and going through. Yeah.
Yeah.
That resonates. So Yeah, that's fun. This is good stuff. Let's just jump right in. Can you share with our listeners a little bit about your background to kind of give us an idea of, you know, who you are, your family, faith of origin, the things that, where you've come from, where you're at, kind of what made you who you are and where you're at.
Yeah. So I grew up in the LA area,
Mm-hmm.
in the San Fernando Valley. I came from a family of six kids. I am the fifth of six. And we grew up in the church, very similar to a lot of people in the 80s, where like the church and everything you did in the church was a big portion or a big part of your social interaction, my friends. So even in LA, my good friends were the ones in my ward, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, I had friends at school and, other groups of friends, but your ward was where you did everything. We had road shows, we had like track days, we had, our primary activities were like crazy, they were like these big events. And so it was kind of like the social hub for me growing up. And I was happy. Life was good. I fit I checked the boxes, or I fit in the box that Mormonism has for women. And so all was good for me. My family went every week. We did family home evening, just all the things. We were just kind of like a typical family, but a typical Mormon family growing up in
Mm-hmm.
maybe a more liberal area, but we kind of had that idea that we were going to be, not of the world type of thing. And so,
Mm-hmm.
but honestly, it wasn't too big of a deal. My parents were pretty chill, to be honest. They expected a lot of things of us, but they weren't super hardcore on like whether we read our scriptures or things like that. We did need to go to seminary. So I went to seminary, struggled through that because we had to do early morning
You
because it
had
was
early
LA.
morning. Yeah, those who don't have to experience that, it's a whole another, yeah,
Yeah,
it's hard.
yeah, it is a sacrifice for these youth to do that. Whereas, all the youth in wherever, Arizona and Utah, that don't have to do it,
In
it's,
Idaho, yeah.
yeah, it's completely unfair. And, we know that teenagers need more sleep. That is the time when teenagers need the
Mm-hmm.
most sleep that they can get. And we're depriving them of that. So I was struggling just to get out of bed, and I didn't go for a
Mm-hmm.
while. So I made it up because I knew I wanted to go to BYU, and I knew I probably
Yeah.
had to, make sure I had graduated from seminary to be able to do that. So I got that, got back on track with that. And when I was heading off to college, and I don't know if this was for you or you experienced the same thing, but there weren't really options. I was just going to go to BYU. Like that was just it. And
I was
um,
a transfer student, so my situation was a little different. I went to Indiana University in Indianapolis for my first year, but
got it.
yeah, a lot of the things that you're saying have to be a seminary graduate, which I had a situation similar to yours. I was late a lot because of that
Yeah.
early,
Yeah.
early morning. And so I didn't actually graduate because my teacher did not give me the option to make up
Oh,
work, but I still got in. So anyway,
yeah.
back to you.
Yeah. Well, and the other hard part about seminary is like, our teacher, she was doing the best she can. Well, one teacher was really good, one was okay. And then one was just, it's like, if you're going to pull me out of bed at 6 a.m. in the morning, you better be fantastic, and she just wasn't engaging. Kids literally would put their heads
Yeah,
on the table and sleep. And so,
it's true.
and it's just
It's
hard at
true.
that age. And so, but I was able to graduate. I was able to get into BYU, and I only applied to BYU. So I'm like, dang, good thing I got in because I didn't apply anywhere else.
Yeah, that's
My
true.
parents didn't really help me. I don't know. I think it's just so different now where parents help their kids so much, but my parents were like, a little bit clueless on that. So I just kind of figured it out myself. Got into BYU, had a great time there. I enjoyed
Yeah.
my working on my undergraduate. I got it in psychology. And I remember it was only after my freshman year. And because I'm such a planner, I was like, okay, well, if I don't get married before I graduate, because had already put myself on a track to graduate in 3 years instead of 4 years, because psychology as an undergraduate is you can finish it pretty quickly. And so I still remember after my freshman year, I was like, well, if I get close to graduation or I'm coming upon graduation and don't have a serious boyfriend or whatever, I'll go on a mission. So that ended up happening. I really didn't date
Hmm.
at
I
all at
remember.
BYU. And so went on my mission, and it was a very hard experience. Still, I say one of the hardest things I've done in my life.
Hmm.
But it was awesome at the same time. If you
Hmm.
talk about, learning to have grit and tenacity and hang in there. I served in Honduras. It's a very poor
Yeah.
country that's kind of riddled with gang violence. And yeah.
Wow. They don't even allow missionaries there, do they, right now?
No, they didn't for a while, but they do. In fact, I think they even maybe opened another mission since I served there. But I mean, it was dangerous. I mean, I got held up at gunpoint. I was grabbed by men.
Good
Like just
heavens.
stuff where you're just like, I would never do what I did. I would never do any of that stuff again. And that's just, I mean, that's not even to talk about that. Like the living conditions were not great, and like there was no running
Yeah.
water, and we couldn't drink the water that if they did have it coming
Mm-hmm.
out of a pipe. And it was so hot, no AC. I mean, just the sun blazing down on you day in and day out. And that's during a time when I don't think they do it as much now, but we did knock doors. And
Mm-hmm. Well, we
yeah,
didn't have all the technology.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's when they were around the time of releasing, what did they call those referrals that would come from 800 numbers from the television? And then
Oh,
they'd
yeah,
mail out referrals, and then the office would pass them down to the missionaries in that
yeah,
way. Very
yeah,
snail mail, very real time.
yeah.
Well, I mean, slow time. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that was also a time, I mean, I was so homesick. I mean, for me, I was like, I'm not giving up. I'm staying here, but man, I'm so homesick. And this was, of course, back when you could only talk to your family twice a year.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really, really hard. Like I said, still one of the hardest things I've done, but it taught me a lot. Like I owe to a certain extent, some of my kind of go get 'em attitude to just learning to stick with it, even though it was so hard.
Mm-hmm.
So I think overall that was a positive for me. It's still something, even with my faith shift, that I look back on with fondness, might be too strong of a word, because it was a lot of survival, to be honest with you. But
Yeah.
it does make me sad that now, with where my kids are, my oldest served a mission, but I don't think any of my others will be serving a mission. And that makes
Mm-hmm.
me sad, because I think the church could provide an opportunity for, I mean, they kind of do the service missions, but usually you're in your hometown, and it's always
Mm-hmm.
setting
Mm-hmm.
up, well, you're not quite like the proselytizing ones. And I just
Yeah.
think the church is missing a real big opportunity to let kids go out and
Mm-hmm.
serve. Like they can say, hey, I don't know if I believe all this stuff, but I want to help and serve and love others. And I'm just
There's so
surprised that.
much growth. There's so
Yeah.
much to be benefited on both sides
Hmm.
for an
Yeah.
arrangement of that nature, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm just surprised. I mean, let them get a
Mm-hmm.
calling. Let them, go to Japan
Mm-hmm.
or Ireland or wherever. And even in while they're on the mission, if they develop a testimony of it and want to serve as a proselytizing, they can switch over. I just think the church is missing out on these kids who would be able to grow themselves from
Mm-hmm.
the experience and give all this service to just love service and be
Mm-hmm.
Christ-like. And they don't have to teach a single lesson if they don't feel comfortable doing it. But
Yeah. Something you said caught my attention, Shannon. You said even if they're not certain about, their beliefs, I think there's a lot to be said about an approach of that nature where growing up in our generation, certainty was so sought after and taught, and it was kind of an absolute. You needed to know and learn and be able to say things that you knew them beyond a shadow of a doubt. That's part of the reason I
mhm,
named this the way that I did, is because wow, there was definitely, I don't know if calling it a pressure, an expectation, a way of being that was definitely there and was kind of considered standard, the ultimate goal, like where you needed to be. And even from that young age of a missionary age.
mhm,
And I think, I think I hear more voices about allowing more room for questions and doubts. And I think that can start as young as, well, primary age, really allowing that. That's where the growth happens. The growth doesn't
yeah,
happen if something's just told to you how to do it, or that's not an invitation to explore
yeah,
and investigate and all of that. So you grew up in LA, in California, you went to BYU, you served a mission. Going back to your checklist, I think we all had them. I think you had it all mapped out. And
yeah,
I think a lot of us did.
mhm,
And you did check off the marriage box. I know that. You got married while we were in grad school,
yeah, yeah.
as did I
So
a year later. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So it's like, okay, well, here I'm coming back to BYU. I finished my mission, and now I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to get my master's degree. And that
Right.
was just the next checkbox, which worked, right?
Right.
Like, if you get a degree in psychology, you can't really do anything with it unless you like take it to another, a higher degree after that. So I was
Right.
like, I still was doing that planning, right? That planning, that prepping.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I want to get married. I want to have kids. And again, I didn't want those things because I had decided for myself that I wanted them. I wanted them because I'd been told my whole life that that's what I was going to
It
do.
was the prescribed path. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And, was I opposed to it? No. I mean, it was like fine. For me, I think what kept me on the traditional path for so long is that it worked good enough. Like I wasn't wanting to go out and party and be crazy, like I was a good kid in high school. And so called of God and set apart to be not of the world, to be separate and different then. And that worked for me. And so coming back from my mission, I think a lot of times a mission can just only reinforce that dedication that the church is true and this is what you're supposed to be doing. And so it just reinforced it and all was good. But then started the program, the master's program at BYU. And
it was in school counseling psychology, by the way, for those listening. So your undergrad was psychology, mine was sociology. Very similar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so at the time, what was I guess I just turned 23. I mean, I truly felt like an old maid. I was like, well, I got to find this guy soon. And sure enough, in my ward, there was a guy who I met, and pretty much in my minimal experience in dating, which was like almost none. I had not had a boyfriend before then. I was just like, well, this guy checks the boxes. He works. And, we had a very challenging dating relationship, which should have been the hint right there. But we persevered, and it was like, well, and then if you think God wants you to do something, like if you think God is like sanctioning this or whatever, like then it's even harder because you'll be like, well, we don't have the best relationship, but it seems like this is what God wants me to do because I prayed about it, and so you have all that in there, and you have it being done by somebody who had little to no dating experience, long-term boyfriend, none of that, right? And so I just back on poor little Shannon, poor little inexperienced Shannon, a 23-year-old Shannon, and go, you just didn't know what you were doing. Like you did not have any good experience upon which to base this major life decision. And I mean, and there were the consequences of that, but yes, so we did, dated longer than most. It was like, I don't know, 10, 11 months, which is really long in Mormonism. And we got married, and I continued working on my master's degree. He had graduated from BYU, and then we got married, and then I was continuing my master's, and then he decided to go get his master's. So I moved along, and we did our practicum, and we did our internships. But the next thing we needed to do was to have kids. Right? Yeah. And I didn't even know if I really wanted kids. I didn't love babysitting growing up, but that was it was the next step. We had been married for, I don't know, 9 months at the time. So it was like, well, clearly we need to start having kids, and look, I know this is not everybody's situation. This is not how their story unfolded, but I feel like for me, I am like that box checker and that person who's like, I'm going to do things in the right order. So this felt like the next right thing to do. And if I'm honest, I wonder if you feel this way. I felt so unprepared to be a counselor or a school psychologist.
Well, for me, my story happened a little bit differently because I got married a year after you. And my husband started law school. Like we graduated in that Friday in August, and law school started that following Monday, 3 days later.
Gosh.
Yeah. So I ended up just not continuing past once I had Abigail, my oldest.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it didn't end up mattering a whole lot because we moved to Texas, where the certification was totally different. What we graduated in didn't really exist in the school system in Texas. So, because it was a pilot program, what you and I went through was a pilot program. It doesn't exist anymore there.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I've looked before. So I couldn't have come here and been a school counselor without going to further training and whatnot. And to be a school psychologist, you have to have a PhD. They have people that are specifically trained to do the IQ and academic testing and all of that. I forget the name for it here.
Yeah.
So I was kind of in a weird place professionally that way.
Yeah.
So yeah, in that sense, I wasn't, but that's how it is a lot in education. You work in the state in which you're certified, and that's a whole nother thing. But so you all moved shortly after graduation. You left the state, yes?
Well, not right away.
Okay.
So what ended up happening is I got pregnant, and then the day after we graduated, I gave birth to my first kid. And then it was
Oh,
like, well,
oh,
I
that's
guess
right. You were
I'm out of the.
expecting.
I was
That's
like
right.
gigantic.
When we
It
were,
was
that's
so big.
right. Shannon,
Yeah.
poor Shannon.
Oh, and so it was this kind of like coming together of like, okay, well, this is what God wants me to do. And I don't totally feel competent to counsel anyone. I mean, like at that point I was like, I guess 24 or whatever. And I'm like, they taught us some stuff, but I was like, man, I don't feel super competent. But either way, it was just like, okay, I'm going to be a mom now, and my spouse at the time he's gonna be the breadwinner. He's gonna pursue the jobs that will get the income we need, and I just dove right into the role of motherhood, and it was fine. I enjoyed it. I actually enjoyed it more than I thought I would, because I was actually afraid that I was maybe not going to love motherhood. But I actually really enjoyed it. And I felt, I don't know, successful at it. I felt I could do well. And so pretty quickly, my first son was not even a year old. And I'm like, all right, let's do this again. Like, let's go. And my spouse at the time I think he was okay with it, but maybe wanting to pump the brakes a little bit, because we had different versions of how much we wanted to be involved in rearing the kids. And what I look back at now is that I am a very motivated, kind of go get 'em type of person. And I was very quickly realizing that my job was going to be to have these kids. And I was very competent at it. I could be juggling these kids and taking care of everything in the household and doing everything that needed to be done. So I just moved forward with gusto. I'm like, let's pop these babies out. I had, when I was pregnant with my first, I had a pretty strong impression that I was supposed to have 5 kids. And for whatever reason, had never thought that before. And so in my mind, as the planner, I'm like, well, if I'm going to have 5 kids, I got to, really pop these kids out quickly. I just wanted to be done past that really, really hard stage of not sleeping at night, changing diapers all the time, nursing. I nursed all my kids. It was,
it's exhausting.
It really is. And so just as the personality type that I am, I'm like, all right, let's just push right through this and get it done. And so that was my plan. And honestly, it wasn't even because I thought I was going to do anything else after this. I really had
just kind of wanted to get through the tough kind of those early
and like,
years.
let's just overlap. I mean, I had multiple kids in diapers at the same time, and it was just like, let's just muscle through this. And then I'm out of this hard stage, because, why I love my babies, little babies are very hard, they just take a lot of your time and energy. And so, I mean, older kids can too, but in a different way. And so, so that's where some of the challenges came in. It was just, one was a disagreement on how quickly to have kids and things like that, even though we had talked about it, when we both didn't know what the heck we would want. And he had said, well, you can have as many as you want. And, but then you start having kids and you can't.
And the reality kind of sets in. Yeah.
Yeah. You can't know. You're trying to make plans for something that you know nothing about, and you can't know it until you experience it. And so.
Yeah. So you've, I don't know, checked quite a few of the boxes here. When would you say you remember going through a period of beginning to start to question or just be able to separate yourself from this narrative that you were living in and had been living in for your whole life, really?
Yeah.
When would you say that started to happen for you?
So it's interesting to me, because I was following along until it's actually 2 things that happen at once. I decided to get my real estate license and start working outside of the home as a real estate agent. And simultaneously, I was called, or very shortly thereafter, I was called to be the Relief Society president.
And for those that are not of the LDS faith background, there is the women's organization within each congregation has a person who oversees it, the president, and the organization itself is called the Relief Society. So that is quite a lot of responsibility. You do have 2 counselors when you serve in that role and a secretary, but there are extra meetings and extra responsibilities that usually the Relief Society president is the one who does. So you had that on top of working outside the home and on top of having 5 kids.
Yeah. And I,
it's a lot.
Yeah. And again, as a very self-motivated person, I did pretty much everything in the house. Like, I ran the household pretty much exclusively. And so getting that calling, trying to build a business. My oldest kid was 11 and my youngest was 3, and still kind of had the expectation that I was going to keep running the household as I had been. So I was like, I got this. All right, let's do it. I mean, I felt overwhelmed, but I was like, okay, this is a challenge. I'm going to take it on. And I'll tell you, I mean, it was amazing. It was an amazing experience to be the Relief Society president because, the good is that you really connect with these women. You are in charge of, however many women are in your congregation, 200, 300, whatever it may be. And you are in charge of their kind of like it's pastoral care, And so if anything happens in their lives, you're kind of on call to help and assist in any way you can. And so while that was a beautiful experience, it was a lot because I was trying to build my business and I was trying to raise my 5 kids, and I didn't feel like I had a ton of support. And so it really just wore me out. And I
don't know how you did that. I've been trying to build this business kind of since COVID, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my kids were older, like in their late teens when I started. So I don't know how you did that with young ones. That's really a heavy load.
Yeah. Megan, I don't know either. To be honest, I look back and I'm like, that was so dang hard. And it really was. And I think the cracks started to show, maybe like, I don't even think I was in the calling for a year. And, just happened to be talking to my spouse at the time about the Book of Abraham and the papyri and where that came from. And he just told me some information about it that I was unaware of, that it basically was a standard funerary text and that it did not have, like, nothing that's in the Book of Abraham was found in the actual papyrus that they found. I thought it was lost in a fire or whatever, But to be honest, like when we were in college, we kind of would look into the deep doctrine stuff and read up about some, Adam God theory and some of these things. But you have to remember, this is mostly pre-internet. And so, and my ex-spouse more than me would do it. But I thought, I knew all the deep doctrine, the really deep stuff, but I didn't. And as time went on, I'm like, look, I can't even hardly make it to the temple with all these kids, hanging around me, much less like study this stuff. And so I kind of pretty much put that on the back burner. And I don't even know how this came up, but when we were talking about it, it was just blowing my mind. And I remember it was like, in my mind, it was like almost like you had this book opened up and you're like, wait, what is this? What is this stuff? And it's almost like in an instant, your brain is like, well, but if this is not true, then this, and I have this calling, and I'm so, there's all these things that almost process in your brain so quickly. And for me at the moment, anyway, I was like, nope, let me shut that book closed. Like, I do not want to go down this road. I do not want to know. But because I was already feeling strain in my personal life and my work life, and like, it wasn't going to go away, unfortunately. I put it up on that shelf, but it didn't last very long because I just had so much strain in other places. And I would go to board of council, which is, the meeting all the leaders would have before church would start. And I'm just looking around and I'm like, gee, like, it's just us. Like, and I didn't even feel like we were doing things that effectively, right? Because we were talking so much about how we could get more people like to join the church. The missionaries would come and chat about that. And I'm just like, well, we're not retaining the people we have. Like, the people in our congregations are struggling. A lot aren't coming to church. I mean, it was maybe a 50% activity rate in my ward at the time. And it just felt like, is this really the way God wants us to do things? I think that was like the biggest question. And then, and then there was like these concerns that started popping in. And for a long time, I'm like, no, I'm not going to read. I'm not going to do, I'm not going to do any of this stuff because it's always considered. I mean, everything is anti. Anything that is not produced by the church is, I feel like, practically considered anti. So you feel like you're betraying the church.
Well, I think that's what we were taught. I think that's what we were taught.
Yeah.
And we don't need to go down that path right now. I just wanted to, this is really key what you said. You kept closing the book. You keep using that phraseology to describe what you were going through. You'd kind of find something out that maybe you didn't know before, or you had understood in a different way. And that thought brought up another thought or question. Question is just another way of phrasing a thought, and then that would maybe produce another. And so then you, like you said, you closed that book. What do you think was going on for you when you did that? Like, tell us about that process. What was going on?
Well, I was still the Relief Society president at that time. And I mean, I just had so much going on anyway. So I actually just kind of am like, I'm going to set this over here and just not
Mm-hmm.
even try to think about it. But when you have to get up, and I didn't get up and teach every week, but you're kind of trying to be this inspiration for
Mm-hmm.
other women to persevere, to hang in there, to, hold on to Christ as your guide and all these things. And when you start feeling like, well, gee, I kind of feel a little dead inside, like, and not dead, but
Mm-hmm.
like, I felt I had to not I should not explore these concerns I had because it was going to lead down a bad or concerning or
Mm-hmm.
dangerous path almost, right? And so
Uh-huh.
the feeling was, nope, nope, don't go down there, Shannon. You're
Okay.
doing this, and you cannot go down here. So I didn't for a long time, but then
So it
I
was
just
kind of black and white for you as far as the way that you had seen, you saw your choices. It was really one or the other.
Oh, absolutely. And
Yeah.
again, that's how we're taught. We are so all or nothing in the church where it's like, well, either you believe or you don't. Either it's all true or it's not. And I feel like the
Mm-hmm.
church is struggling with that now because when you say it's all or nothing and there's as many problematic things in the church as there are,
Mm-hmm.
well, then members are going, well, it has to be nothing because now I
Mm-hmm.
found this problematic thing and this problematic thing. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and you taught me that it's either all or nothing. And so now I have to like kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater
Mm-hmm.
because that's how I've been taught. And I probably was in that realm at first and like, oh, I mean, it is so, uh, I cannot describe what it feels to know that what you were taught your whole life is not what you thought it was. We'll put it that way, right?
Yeah.
It's like your world's over. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my gosh, like what? It is a very unsettling feeling.
Like, what has all this been for?
Mhm. And wow, I
Yeah.
wasn't told the truth. And the biggest thing for me
Mm-hmm.
was, and I believed this so fully. I gave a year and a
Mm-hmm.
half of my time. I did these callings. I went every week. And so for me, it was what, at the age of 39, 40. So like my whole life in this, and to at this age be like, hey, this may not all be what it seems to what you thought it was. It's very unsettling.
I think, at least in my experience and, in the conversations that I have had, this really does become a part of your identity. And if you were born into this faith, it's the identity of your parents as well, and perhaps your grandparents. And so you use the right way to describe what it feels like to learn things that maybe you thought you understood in a certain way, and then now your layers are peeled back. And with the information age, we do have a lot available to us that was not available in
Mhm.
prior to, I don't know, the 90s is, I think, when things really started to become a little bit more, but more the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And that rocks your world when you come to a point where your lived reality is no longer matching
Mhm.
with things that maybe you were taught. That's what I experienced when I learned of my kiddo's identity as a queer individual. That
Mhm.
rocked my world
Mhm.
because, like you, I grew up in this church. I can trace my ancestors back to the foundation, like the forming of the church, in the early days.
Mhm.
And I truly believe it's in my DNA. I think it is in it that way in all of us. I really
Mhm.
do.
Mhm.
And I like to kind of pause and just emphasize this when I see it with my guests. Like, these experiences are real. And these moments, these questions, these realities, I mean, it's just not taken lightly.
Yeah.
It's real.
And the other thing is, and I don't know if you feel the same way, I didn't go looking for this.
Yeah.
This was not something, and it's taught so unfairly and incorrectly when it is referred to oftentimes in Sunday school or whatever that, well, you just wanted to sin, you wanted to take the easy way, you wanted to whatever. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
just like, no, not even close. Like I
Mm-hmm.
literally was in the middle of serving in one of the highest callings you can serve well, it is the highest calling in within a congregation that a female can serve when
Mm-hmm.
this happened to me. And so, if you want to look at it this way, I'm like, well, if I was inspired to this calling, then that means what our heavenly parents wanted for me was to have this faith shift because I don't know that I would have, I may have had it at some point, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I would have had it when I did if I hadn't been just so overburdened with everything I was doing, but
Mm-hmm.
also with just getting the inside view of what it's like to
Mm-hmm.
be a leader and how this all ran, So I just feel like, wow, I feel like our heavenly parents must have wanted this faith transition to happen because I got called to that calling if we believe callings are inspired. And so,
So, how hard was it to begin to acknowledge these shifts within your faith community? I think that's, one of the things that I'm hoping to invite more people to do, or at least entertain the idea of doing, and that is to have conversations that they're not easy.
Yeah.
They're sharing your heart with another person. And, what was that like? And, were you able to share where you were at and how, and talk about that for a minute.
Yeah. So I will say what was really great at the time is probably before I really started looking into anything, I just became numb. I was just like overworked, too much going on in my life. And I was just like not numb. And my husband at the time was going to be called as the seminary teacher. And I'm like, that's my out. I'm like, there's no, and there was just so much going on that whether I needed an out or not, there was no way that I was going to be the Relief Society president and him the early morning seminary teacher. So that was my out. And for a while, I just was like, I didn't go to church. I mean, we are a family that goes to church every week, right? And so I didn't completely stop going to church, but I was able to skip here and there. And I just told my husband at the time, and he actually was great about it. Like he didn't question. But it's, I think he had his own faith transition long ago and just never told me about it, because he was the one who told me about the book of Abraham. He was the one who was like, well, actually, and so he gave me space and there was no issues there. I think what was harder for him to take in was the patriarchy and the sexism that exists in the church. And I think for a lot of men, especially men in leadership, it's hard for them to be like, oh yeah, this is a problem, because they're like, no, I'm just doing the best I can. Like, I really am trying my best. And I kind of want to be like, well, it's not you specifically, right? It's just, this has happened to all of us.
Both can be true. You're doing the best that you can. And there are some areas that could, be adjusted, be changed to allow for a more beneficial experience, no matter what your gender is.
Yeah. Well, and I think men can feel like they are blamed for it. And it's like, you're a victim just like we all are. Like, you didn't create this. You're just a product of it, as we all are. And so, but that can be hard to look at. And so, but really no issues with him. And then I did start trying to share. I even started a Facebook group to ask questions, and which was probably not the best idea as I look back on it now, because I was trying to invite people in my ward because there just was no outlet. Like, I was just like, can we have a class on this? Can we do a fifth Sunday? Can we do something?
Good for you for trying.
Yeah.
So you tried to present some of these ideas and questions and wrestles that you were having.
Yeah. I just wanted to be like, where can we talk about this? And the answer was nowhere. We can't talk about it,
So you didn't find people comfortable to engage in dialogue at the time?
No. And I get it. I mean, to be honest, when you're finding this stuff out in real time, you're upset, you're frustrated, you're like, well, did you know about this? And what about that? And you feel a little bit betrayed. And so that can make people very, very defensive, like,
because you're probably operating from a place of you're reacting to your emotions. You're kind of, you're processing a lot, which you should.
Yeah.
There's no shame, or, that's part of the overall process. To just kind of get a time frame, was this kind of the mid 2000 teens ish?
Yeah, this was I'm trying to think of the time frame, because I think I was released in early 2015 somewhere.
Yeah, so
maybe mid 2015. Yeah.
And the more I've been in this space and the more reading that I'm doing, I am learning that there was a lot of searching, asking, questioning going on. I can see that now in hindsight, because of other people's stories that I've heard and read about. I hadn't quite begun my journey just yet.
Yeah. Well, I feel like it's our generation that's really grappling with this. I feel like you have some older people that are too, no question. And they're, but we're like the in between, because I feel like my kids are like,
I call us the bridge. We're a bridge generation, trying to link what our forebears created and prized and honed to the best that they knew how. But we have so much more knowledge and information available to us, so much more science, so much more research. Plus, we're connected much more intricately with all parts of the world. And so we've been exposed to so many other ways of being and doing and living and existing. And there really isn't just one way of experiencing life.
When I feel like we're like, and we have experience with the way it was before, right? And the way maybe our parents, everything was very black and white, and they only had so much information. I mean, I just think of all the information we have at our fingertips now and how much better we can be, because we can listen to podcasts and we can books on tape, and like we have anything at our fingertips, but they didn't have that. So I think we get that on the one hand for our parents will say, but then for our kids, they're like, yeah, we're not having any of that. Like, they're like, we know better. We're not going to do that. And we're like, but wait, we know both, I feel like some of us want to try to pull those two sides together and just be like, no, this is not all bad. There's still some good here. And, for our parents to be like, there is good, but there's also some bad and not good, so we're kind of trying to do both sides. But yeah, it was like early 2015. And then I just didn't do a whole lot, kind of like eyes glaze over, just kind of checked out a little bit. Cause I was like, I didn't know where to turn exactly. I didn't know what to do, and then I found a Facebook group. I found Jenna Reese. I always mention her because she felt safe.
She's written about a lot of this, and she's a good writer.
And what is it? Is it Thomas Wortham McConkie? He was great. And, so you're kind of dipping your toe in, but you're like, well, this is a problem. This is a problem, but maybe I can hold on to this. Maybe this is okay. And the one thing I held on to for a long time and refused to investigate really was the Book of Mormon. Because I thought, okay, Joseph Smith was problematic. Book of Abraham, no good, like polygamy, nah, all these things. But I'm like, but if the Book of Mormon is true, it just means imperfect people, make mistakes. And so I held off for a long time on looking into the Book of Mormon because that's how I was trying to hold things together for myself. But the thing that really kind of like broke everything, maybe broke my shelf. I mean, my shelf was kind of already broken, maybe it's still trying to hold together, was the November 5th policy. Because I was like, well, would our loving heavenly parents do that? Would they really want us to have to denounce our, a parent that we love so that we can get baptized? Would they even want us to have to wait till we're 18? Like, there were just so many things where I was not sure, but I'm like, I'm going to look into this. I'm going to really go back and be like, well, what do we believe? What do we teach? And that's when that really was like the beginning of the end, unfortunately. So
for those that are listening that may not be aware, Shannon's referring to a policy that was made by the leaders of the LDS Church in 2015, specifically for those that were in a same-sex marriage whose children wanted to get baptized, and required that they be 18 before they could do so. And it was painful. I didn't understand it. It took me a few more years to really just kind of begin the wrestle, I guess you could say, like really get in. And here's one thing I want to say. I heard you when we were talking about this bridge concept. In this space, the space that I feel really, really strongly about creating is there is room for all of it, for everyone, for all the questions, all the ponderings, all of the experiences, all of the emotions, because that is how we are made. And if we try to stifle or ignore that, we're again going back to trying to fit into a box. We're again going back trying to maybe be or experience something that we're not, rather than just leaning into our own intuition, into our own experience, and then honoring it and learning from it, and then ultimately growing from it. It's a process. And if we don't allow ourselves to go through any of those steps, and I mean, those are not all inclusive, then we're not, there's an element of, not showing up authentically to ourselves intertwined in that. And that is one thing that having, not only do I have a child who is queer, but I have extended family members who are. And one thing this next generation is teaching me, and I think others, is how, wow, it takes guts to be authentic. Wow, it takes a lot of bravery and stepping into your own personal courage to show up vulnerably. And who you are and who you feel on the inside, even if, and especially when it is very different from kind of mainstream and what people have been, kind of society has just been, for so long. It can be terrifying.
Yeah. Well, and for me, I think so I have found like a really awesome space, or I've elbowed my way in and made space for myself. And
good. I'm so glad.
In my ward, but I've been able to do that because my ward, I mean, the people are loving. I've known them for a long time. I have history with them. I served as the Relief Society president. So there is a part of the ability to do like some of the things that I feel like I've been able to do, in that because if you have a little more like social capital, you know what I mean? Like if you have, well, social capital, a soft place to land, all that, all those types of
Yeah.
things.
Mm-hmm.
If you've maybe just moved to a ward, I've actually heard this a lot from, a few people that have reached out to me over the years where, if they're in a newer ward or they didn't know many people, you don't feel like you can say anything. You don't feel like you
Exactly.
can, wards sadly often are just echo chambers. Everybody's just repeating back to each other the same thing that we've all heard for, in my case, going on
I
50
think because
years
that's
now.
kind of what we were taught to navigate relationships and our faith journeys and whatnot within the context of that that community, that type of a family dynamic. I mean, our faith communities are a family of sorts, right? And so, I think as the church grew from the days of our grandparents and great grandparents, and I kind of see parallels with the way that, because the church did originate in America, in North America, in the United States, there were parallels with the way corporations and businesses and that type of capitalism also grew. And so, and we know who were the leaders of our faith. You can go and read about it anywhere online.
Yeah.
And a lot of them were, businessmen and that type of thing. And so now there's just so much more available for us to see. And the more that we're making space, I think, for this, okay, she wants to elbow her way in. She's going to shake things up again. And I think it's so beautiful that they're making room for you.
Yeah.
That isn't always the case.
Yeah.
And I hope for more of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's tricky because when I first was experiencing my faith expansion, transition, whatever you want to say.
I call it an expansion.
Yeah. Not a lot of people wanted to hear it, right? And I temporarily strained friendships were, I will say, temporarily strained, a few because of it. And others just like, hey, I don't want to hear it, and that was fine. And I learned actually, and I tell this right now because I help other friends, it's like everybody's coming out of the woodwork now. I mean, so many people are having faith transitions. And so, I kind of help people through it a bit, and they feel a lot of times so like they're like, I'm angry, or I don't even feel like I have anything to say at church, or I don't even know if they should come. And I'm like, all that is totally normal. And because I raise my hand like almost every week. Well, no, not almost. Literally every week, I always have something to say in Relief Society or Sunday school. Every week.
Good for you.
But it wasn't that way. I remember sitting there, and going, if they asked me to speak in Sacramento, I would not be able to. Like, I just don't have anything positive to contribute at the moment. And so I tell that to my friends. I'm like, that was me for a good 2 to 3 years. I wanted to say something, but I wanted to be like, nope, that's wrong. Or you want to like almost not attack, but you want to be like, no, people, listen, this is not right. And that's not going to get anywhere if you're amongst all these people who do believe this in the traditional sense. And so that was hard. And I think if somebody is in those early stages, it's like, just give yourself all the time you need. I immediately was trying to do a class and trying to do these things. And I probably needed to just give myself a little more time to like sit in it and then find like-minded people that will save you. You know what I mean? People where you really feel like you can share how you really feel about what you're going through. Because I feel like in my ward that it's gotten better, so I'm coming up on actually, I think 10 years now. If I'm not mistaken, 10 years of being in this. And from when I first started to now, there's a lot more openness that was not there 10 years ago.
I'm sure. Yeah. I'm sure. And just one thought that came up as you were talking about that 2 to 3 year period, anger. One of the reasons why it is so important to allow it is it's a purifier, right? It gets rid of what is no longer needed or helpful or beneficial, whether that's emotional, whether that's a true physical, actual thing. It's an energy that helps us move to the next stage of wherever it is we need to go, and where our spirit is guiding us, pulling us, directing us. So I'm curious to know, kind of a two-part question here. By allowing these initially questions and doubts, and then allowing this process of going through this faith expansion, like, how has that helped you in cultivating your relationship with the divine? And then the second part is, how has your faith journey been different than maybe what you thought it was going to be when you think back on young, inexperienced, maybe naive Shannon?
Well, so there's a couple of things. Maybe what I want to start with is I felt like when I was a like full on believing member of the church that I could only get so far spiritually because things wouldn't make sense. And I'd be like, but that doesn't make sense. But I would just stop, kind of like the thought stopping idea. It's like, well, so it's almost like I felt like I couldn't dig deeper because I get to a thing where I'm like, but that doesn't make sense. Oh, well, don't worry about it. You know what I mean? And so I feel like now that my mind is open to any possibility that it might be that I'm much more comfortable with doubt and not knowing. In fact, I actually feel more comfortable saying I don't know because
me too.
That's the truth.
I've said the same thing.
Yeah. And not even about our religion, about anything. Like like politically, I mean that I've had a big shift politically because and I don't know if this is the case for everybody, but often religiously we're just taught, well, the Republicans are the one, the party of God or whatever, and so I just grew up with that. Like, I talk about how we're all indoctrinated and I don't mean that word in a bad way, but we all are to whatever it may be.
From a psychological standpoint, it's conditioning.
Yes. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's same concept. I get it.
Yeah. We're taught that this is right. This is good. This is the best. Our country is the best. The college I went to is the best. My sports team that I follow is the best. Whatever it is, we're just indoctrinated or conditioned to believe that. And so it's not a bad thing, but it's just, it makes you think that what you have and what I just happen to be born into the right religion, God's religion, lucky me, and we think that I just happen to be born into the greatest country in the world, lucky me, and so it's just a human tendency. And it's been super helpful for me to recognize that I don't have all the answers. I maybe was really wrong about something else in the past that I thought I was so right about. And there is so much beauty in that. Like, I cannot overstate how beautiful it's been to realize that I was so wrong about something that was so important in my life. I feel like I love people in a more Christ-like way now. I feel like I'm much less judgy. And I would have said, and this is the hard thing, if you had asked me before this, I would have been like, I don't judge. I don't care if they're drinking. I don't care if their skirt's up to here. And I kind of thought that, but way back in my brain, those judgments were happening. Because again, if your religion tells you that if that woman is not wearing, a top with sleeves, she's not doing what God wants, right? Because we just have all these things with our undergarments or number of piercings of the ears, all these things where I don't think the church meant to have it be this way, but they're outside indicators that people can easily see that, you're not doing what you're supposed to, And so of course we're going to judge. You have purple hair and a nose. Well, of course we're going to judge because like you said, we grew up, the church kind of really blossomed, we'll say, during the time of 50s, 60s, 70s, where it was very like buttoned up business attire, you looking very respectful. And so we just adopted that.
Plus the nation was recovering still a bit from, the Depression, the two world wars that happened. I mean, there was a lot that happened. And because resources or ways to connect and find community were limited in ways that they aren't now. I think it did meet a need. It's important to take in, right, political, social context and all of those things for sure.
Yeah. And I think conformity was very valid, probably even in our generation up to a certain, you conform to the group. You show that you belong. So I feel like, again, that's where we're like in the in-between, because conformity and to follow the group and do the right things as it appeared outwardly to others was very much, I think, our parents' kind of generation, a bit of ours. I mean, 80s, 90s. Oh yeah, you wanted to fit in. So I do love, so that's why we're in the in-between, but I do love my kids, their friends. They're like, no, I'm going to be whatever I want. No, I'm not going to, and so, is that pendulum going too far to the one end? Who knows, right? But what I see is the beauty in just saying, I'm going to be me. And I'm going to search and try to find that authentic self inside. And I'm not going to be hampered by, God doesn't want this, or God's not okay with that, or, I'm going to be authentically me. And I feel like our kids are really taking on that idea of that's all we should be doing, is really being who we are showing who we are on the inside.
Yeah. Celebrating and embracing who God has already created each of us to be. And their infinite wisdom and creativity. Gosh, this has been a lot of fun. I like to wrap up with one final question I ask all of my guests. And, I purposely dropped the A in the title of this podcast, trying to peel away this negative stigma and shame that has, I think, traditionally been attached to the word doubt. So my last question is, what does it mean to you to live beyond the shadow of doubt?
For me, it's kind of like what you're saying. I feel more authentically me. I feel free to embrace whatever feels right and good to me. I feel free to say I was wrong. I messed up. I had that wrong. And now I thought one way then, but now I know better now.
Mm-hmm.
It also means that much more grace given to those who still want to hold on to that tightly. I have no problem with that. I was in that same space for a long time. So if that is what gives them comfort and joy, like hold on to that, you know? But I'm just trying to make space for people who don't feel that way. And for us to all say, we see things differently, and that's okay.
Yeah.
If you feel very convicted about it, no problem. I don't. I feel differently. And there should be space for all of us here. And I don't mean in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in the church. I mean, I should be able to go and say, hey, you know, your experience where you prayed and God helped you find your car keys, that's awesome. That's not been my lived experience.
Yeah.
You know, and respect each other's spiritual journeys, because they're all going to be so different, but still, you know, be welcome to come to church every week, and that we want that diversity. So for me, it's a lot more freedom. I don't feel constrained anymore. I don't feel like I have to hide who I am or what I think, and that it's all going to be okay because we are loved by our heavenly parents. So
I love that so much. So you're talking about the grace piece. Yes. I don't know that anybody in this space couldn't have the opportunity to show and just pour out grace upon those around them, on their own selves. I mean, I don't know what would be a better recipe for a refiner's fire than feeling all this anger on one side and all those complex emotions that come with this journey, while simultaneously trying to find it in your heart to have that grace and love and all those things for the others in a different place who may not see you where you're at least not in that moment. That's not something everybody maybe has experienced up to this point.
Well, and I think I was just like, do we really believe the message that Christ taught us, which is just like radical love, radically love and accept others?
Same.
Sometimes I'm just like, I don't know that we believe it in the church because we don't really practice it. So,
or maybe there's room for us to grow, a lot of room for us to grow in our understanding, in the depth of our understanding of it.
Yeah, I feel like I had a much better understanding of what the example of Christ is when I became the person on the other side who was probably looked at as lost my way. I didn't know, you know what I mean? And so once I was viewed in that way, I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. We think we're the right one on the right path, doing it all right. And when you understand that all of us are just trying to make our way and do the best we can, and we're each doing it differently, you develop that Christ-like love of just like, hey, I may not be wanting to do it the same as you, but I value your attempts and want to learn from you. And I hope that you feel likewise towards me. So
I love that. That's a perfect place to tie a nice, neat little bow. I do like to throw out some for fun questions at the very end. And I'm just looking for 1 or 2 word answers. Mm-hmm. This is for us to get to know you a little bit better. So for starters, tell us your favorite book, or maybe the one you're reading now or most recently have read.
I don't think I have a favorite, but I'm rereading It by Stephen King.
Oh, really?
I'm listening to it. It's 46 hours. It's an audio, 46 hours. It's a huge book. And my kids are reading it too while I'm reading it. So,
okay. I think I know the answer. Are you an introvert or an extrovert?
Total extrovert.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
Okay. And who's your favorite artist?
Like musically, or?
You pick the genre.
Okay, this is really funny. Joanna Gaines, if you think of her as an artist, because, I'm all about houses, and she's just amazing. That is
true. You are.
Just her craft.
You have the most amazing, I noticed your marketing that you do as a realtor a few years back. So fun. And yes, you're very good at staging and all of that. So makes perfect sense for what you do. Yeah. Are you a night owl or a morning lark?
I am neither. I'm like in between. I go to bed at like an okay, not too late, not too early. Same. Get up, not too late. I feel like I'm like medium, if that makes sense. I'm just kind of medium and everything.
Medium's good.
Yeah.
Do you have a celebrity crush?
I'm like, blah.
That means yes, you do.
Well, it was funny because I was talking to a friend about that. We both, and it was surprising because I don't think it's a common one, but Christian Bale.
Oh, I've heard someone say that before. That's a fun one. Made a good superhero, right?
Yeah. And he did other ones. He's just very intriguing to me. So.
Okay. And then do you like still or carbonated water, or do you do diet soda?
Oh man. For years I was so good and only did milk and water, would not have anything in my house. Now I have like a 32 pack or whatever of Diet Coke.
And you have a fridge dedicated just to.
Dang, I was so good for so many years, and now I'm like
falling
off the wagon.
Okay, and then finally, the furthest place that you have traveled.
Well, went to Italy a couple years ago, Greece. That's probably the furthest. Not that far,
Yeah,
but
that's
yeah.
fun. Oh, that's plenty far. Those are
Mhm.
both on my bucket list. Is I haven't been there yet. That'll be
Yeah.
fun. So, if folks wanted to reach out to you or ask you questions, more questions about your
Mhm.
journey, or if they're on the East Coast and maybe they're looking for a new home, what would be the easiest way for them to connect with you?
I mean, they can certainly email me at my business email, which is shannonlamb.realtor at
Okay.
gmail.com. And then I have a Facebook and Instagram. I have my private page, but I also have Shannon Lamb Homes, Instagram
Okay.
and Facebook.
Okay. So we'll put those in the show notes. Yeah. Perfect. Well, this has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy life. So fun to reconnect.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun to chat and catch up a little bit.
Totally. Visit meganskidmorecoaching.com to find this podcast and additional free resources, including the link for a complimentary coaching session. Follow me on Facebook or Instagram for more, or to send me a DM. Help the podcast grow. Please follow, review, and share with a friend.